Back here for the last time on the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Jumping right into the last segment, the biggest story, or the most dramatic one, I thought, was with Mecole Hardman and the New York Jets. If you're unfamiliar with it, he signed there last offseason, and he ended up getting traded back to the Kansas City Chiefs, and obviously goes on to win a Super Bowl. He's a 3-time Super Bowl champion. All hats off to Mecole Hardman, but he went on the Pivot podcast hosted by Ryan Clark, Channing Crowder, and Fred Taylor, and they asked him about everything, the Super Bowl, his experience with all that. They asked him about his past experience. Channing Crowder actually did. I watched the episode, and Channing actually brought up the Jets and just basically asked me, what happened? Why didn't it work out there? And very, very surprised. Mecole Hardman didn't hold back. He said, quite honestly, we weren't on the same page. Y'all treat certain guys like they shouldn't be treated. I don't understand where y'all feel like I don't compare or I can't compete with any of these guys. Everybody does what they want to do. Granted, the defense has more of a stabilized standard with the coaching staff on that side. So the defense has a standard, but the offense is just like, we'll figure it out. It's Aaron's show. Let Aaron do what Aaron does. Then when Aaron goes down, it's like we don't know what to do. And he started all of that by answering the question saying, there are no standards on the Jets offense. Specifically the offense. There's no standards there. And, very strong words to say, very revealing words to allude to the fact of why he didn't work out there. He was injured a good amount of the weeks he was there, but, this is a bit more telling and a bit more revealing of how he felt around the organization and how they felt around him. He had some chances to play, but he didn't get the chance to. He probably felt he didn't get the opportunity to play where he thought he should have. There was another quote that I remember watching that I didn't write down where it was, he said he felt like the Jets couldn't, or the Jets coaching staff couldn't really tell him anything in regards to winning, because he's been around the Chiefs for so long, winning Super Bowls and having success there. He felt that the Jets couldn't really approach him in a way trying to tell him how to win, because, they're the Jets. I won't get into the recent struggles and everything like that, but he's been in part of organizations that have been to the mountaintop multiple times, and that was another interesting thing that I thought he brought up, really honestly how he felt, and all that was very telling because, it kind of alludes to the fact why the Jets weren't successful at all last year. Granted, freak accident with Aaron Rodgers. Who's going to guess that he's going to rupture his Achilles like the first play? But I think just the rest of the season was pretty telling because Zach Wilson goes in there, and you don't expect Zach Wilson to be Aaron Rodgers, but you expect him, if this offense is really where everyone thought it was going to be, if this team was ready at that point where everyone thought they were going to compete for the division, be in those games, their defense is very high caliber. It kept them in a lot of games, but if their offense was up to that level where everybody thought it was, I think they probably would have won some of those close games, but they didn't, not just because of Zach Wilson. I think overall the O-line hasn't really been great. They still need to touch up on that. They need to find somebody else to be a running mate with Garrett Wilson. They need a better tight end. The running back is great. Breece Hall is great. He didn't get as much touches as I thought he did initially. Makes sense because he's coming off of that injury, but he's him and Garrett Wilson are the two that are obviously otherworld talents, very good caliber starters. But then other than that, I think even with Aaron Rodgers there, they weren't gonna do that much better because Aaron is a lot older. He's not as mobile as some of these other guys, and he needs a good O-line to protect him. Yeah, he could buy time a little bit, but it's not gonna look like a Josh Allen or a Patrick Mahomes doing it with him being in his later 30s. And I think a lot of people don't talk about that aspect, and I kind of agree. I do agree with Mecole Hardman on that part. I think the Jets over-relied on Aaron Rodgers a bit too much. There were some reports in training camp and leading up to the season from Aaron Rodgers himself saying, the O-line needs improvement. it was that 1 week area where I felt like people brushed it off a little bit. Yeah, they mentioned it, but they never really got into saying that without a good O-line, Aaron Rodgers isn't really going to be Aaron Rodgers if he has no time to throw the ball. He has great talent throwing it. He's still one of the top quarterbacks, I believe, talent-wise, throwing that ball, but everybody needs a good O-line. I don't care who you are to throw that ball. And that was the part of the interview that I really agreed with. But later on in that interview, I think Mecole Hardman just said something he shouldn't have. He kind of got himself in trouble. He said later on, when it was really getting to the tipping point with the Jets, he said to the guys, he said, I was so checked out, like I was over with it. I had already talked to Veach and Pat, like, come get me. You know, that could be brushed over. A lot of people didn't really realize until recently. There's been reports that, you know, that's essentially like tampering. In all honesty, when he says it himself that he already talked to Veach, general manager Brett Veach for the Chiefs, and Patrick Mahomes, and he said, you know, come get me. Those were his words that he used in the moment in the interview. He later went on Twitter to clarify that he never talked to them before they engaged in trade talks, but I don't think that'll stop the NFL really from pursuing this as a tampering issue. They'll definitely do it if the Jets, you know, report it to the league and say, you know, that this shouldn't be allowed. They were interacting with one of our players while he was under contract with us. They can't do that. That's obviously tampering. The Jets haven't made a decision on that yet, but they actually asked general manager Joe Douglas about it at the Combine, and just basically he didn't go in too deep on it, but he said, all I'll say is those comments are definitely resonate with us. The come get me comments that Mecole Hardman made, obviously, and you know that he stirred the pot already with general manager Joe Douglas. He obviously seemed annoyed by it, but he didn't want to say anything about it directly. But their punter, Thomas Morstead, went on Twitter as well, and he responded directly, as direct as you can get without saying a name, to Mecole Hardman. And he said, you know, be careful getting information from disgruntled former employees. Getting beat out by rookie free agents after being guaranteed millions of dollars is tough to deal with. Entitlement is a killer of opportunity. You have to earn it. You have to earn it every year. Very harsh words again. Defending the Jets in a way because, you know, they were very impressed with the undrafted rookie free agent that they signed. I don't have the name of him, but I do recall him, Joe Douglas, and Robert Saleh saying that he was very impressive. He got a lot of playing time over him. I want to say his name was Xavier Gibson. I could be wrong, but that's just what's coming to my mind. But regardless of what it is, you know, everyone coming out and giving their side of the story, Thomas Morstead, Mecole Hardman, Joe Douglas touching on it. It sheds a light a little bit, not only on the part of Mecole Hardman, which I do agree with, but then when he went out and almost outed himself when he said that he talked to Veach and Patrick, you know, he did that on his own. Those were his own words. Nobody was alleging that he did that. Now he made himself look bad. It's very revealing because it shows what the Jets kind of were at one point, where they had Mecole Hardman and everybody thought this was just going to work right away. It was going to flow perfectly because they had Aaron Rodgers. They had the talent. They had him. They gave him a good wide receiver. Breece Hall was coming back. Their defense was great. But there was all these underlying little problems that they were dealing with internally and nobody knew about until now, when everyone brings it out and they want to express themselves over what was really going on. And, you know, you never see such telling comments, really. At least not during the season. During the offseason, you get some people, you know, expressing themselves more. But with this scenario, I thought it was crazy that Mecole Hardman just said it very nonchalantly, just saying it how he felt, to say that, the Jets over-relied on Aaron Rodgers and they didn't have a plan. It makes, obviously, the Jets look bad, but then he kind of got himself in trouble and said that he almost, or the Chiefs tampered with him in his scenario with the Jets. And, there was other issues that popped out over the season where there was allegedly the Jets' game plan was given out to the Eagles, and I think before their Chiefs game as well, where Sauce Gardner touched on it on Twitter, saying that their game plan was given out during their or before their games against the Chiefs and the Eagles. He reminded everybody of that, just poking at the issue that Mecole Hardman was never really satisfied at the Jets, and now we're in a very weird spot where, everything's just been thrown out there, and everyone's now waiting for a reaction from the league, from the Jets, if they're continually asked about it, which I'm sure they will be, at least Robert Saleh, if he makes an appearance at the Combine, or Joe Douglas still with multiple days left of the Combine. I'm sure it'll be brought up again. And if it gets to a point where, it gets to a tipping point, I'm sure that the Jets will reach a point. If everyone just keeps bringing it up, I'm sure they'll get annoyed by it, and then I do expect them to go to the league office and have them investigate it. If not, I'm sure the league will do it anyway, because this is a pretty serious thing to just look over with Mecole Hardman and the Chiefs, because if that is true that they tampered, the other things could be true that Sauce Gardner said about their game plans being leaked, and it all just turns into a lot more serious issue that why nobody was really expecting to come out like it did. But, Mecole Hardman was very honest about it, and it all turns into this very serious legal issue with the league now that we're going to have to wait to see what happens. But that's where that stands right now. It was very dramatic the way it all happened because of how quickly that reaction was from everybody. But it happened. Now it's out there. And like everything else, we just have to wait to see what the actions are that follow this, how the league gets involved with it, on top of all the issues they have to deal with during the offseason that we're in right now. But that's probably going to do it for this episode, just touching on that last issue around the Chiefs, around Mecole Hardman. I would love to know what you guys think. If you think Mecole Hardman meant anything by it, if you think he was being really serious when he said that he talked to Brett Veach and he talked to Patrick and said, come get me, essentially. I want to know what you guys think, if he actually meant that, or if this was all just sort of blown out of proportion. He didn't mean to say it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments or in questions live during the episodes. But just to end this, I want to give a huge thank you to everyone listening or who watches afterwards on YouTube. Please remember, as always, to like, follow, and subscribe to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast presented by GSMC Sports Network. Make sure to also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok for more of the network's content. There's a lot of good stuff out there outside of this show. And if you do want to see more of me and this show, please check out the GSMC Sports Network channel and Podcast Network channel on YouTube for more live shows, YouTube shorts, and individual segments from the live shows in case you miss the shows or just want to tune into a specific part of it. But as always, I've been your host, Manny Maradiaga. Tune in every weekday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time for more NFL and football conversations. Take care, guys. I'll see you guys all tomorrow. Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to